thanks everyone for being here. We know how important this is. We want to get started here. They've asked me to take the plane off, so I can do that.
You're the pilot.
But I'm going to need help of us landing this plane. We're all in trouble. Guys, what do you want?
Yeah, well, welcome, good morning, everybody. So glad to see a room full of people. I think it speaks to the real passion and just kind of extraordinary opportunities we have in front of us right now between some of the energy locally and also some of the movement happening at the state level right now. So I'm fired up, and it makes me more fired up to see this room full of folks. I think the first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from our February 19th community engagement sessions. Many of y'all were at that. So,
there's one edit they'll add, which is the guests present did not include Martha Geithner, and we'll make that correction.
okay, great. So we'll note that change. And is there a motion to approve the minutes for our February 19th meeting?
So second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, we have approved the minutes from our first public meeting.
Would it be all right if everybody introduced herself again?
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
And there is a sign-in sheet that is going around the room that will help us capture the names of people who are present and their contact information.
Yeah, why don't we do a quick round of introductions? If folks can, if you can share your name and the organization or institution that you're part of, that'd be great.
Denise Patterson, Superintendent for Asheville City Schools.
I'm Shonda Sanford with, I'm the board chair of Asheville City Schools.
And I'm Martha Geithner, and I'm the vice chair of Asheville City Schools.
Mark Dickerson, Asheville City Schools Assistant Superintendent.
Kevin Kelsey's the Superintendent of Asheville City Schools.
Mary Arnold, Community Action Opportunities Program Operations Manager for Head Start.
I'm Camille Cushman, I'm Tuas Juanita.
Hi, Kurt Gorham with Children's First Community Schools.
Molly Maynard with Fiscal Legal Services.
Caroline Rodier, Buncombe Partnership for Children.
Christine Malloy, work for Mission Children's, but I'm also on the Buncombe Partnership for Children.
Marcia Whitney, Verner Center for Early Learning. Jenny Vile, Child Care Resources at Buncombe Partnership for Children.
Jerry Rice, advocate, video man, community agitator. That's enough.
That's good, yeah.
Rashida McDaniels, Community Engagement in the County.
Rachel Nygaard, Buncombe County.
Leslie Anderson Consultant and Advocate.
Jennifer Bosworth, Asheville Buncombe Tech, Chair of Early Childhood. I'm Susanna Smith. I'm with Asheville City Schools. I'm the Preschool Operations Coordinator for the preschool program.
John DeWitt, Community Volunteer.
Linda Hobson, Children and Friends, Board Chair. Amy Berry, Buncombe Partnership for Children.
And Broderick Backey, Communities Head Start.
Laura Martin, Berner. Glenda Weiner, North Carolina Child Care Commission.
Al Weinstein.
Desert Beach Ferrara, District 1.
And Robert Presley, the pilot for the day.
So I'll review your agenda for you. We don't have our committee fully seated, so we also don't yet have decided a chair and kind of the exact way that these meetings will flow in the future. In speaking with you guys individually, here's what we came up with for the agenda today. We'll talk through committee membership, look at the 6-member structure that you all had established initially, and discuss whether we want to keep that or make any adjustments to that. Also look at the names of those who have made application to join the committee so far as of yesterday, and knowing that our deadline is the 15th of March. Any follow-up discussion that you all would like to have related to recruitment or outreach. After the committee membership discussion, any discussion around community engagement, whether it is follow-up on the sessions that we had on February 19th, or revisiting that previously discussed idea of a community-wide input mechanism, whether it's a session, survey, some combination, as well as the main sort of decision in front of you today is funding application. So there's a draft of the funding application in the packet, and we want to spend time looking at that and discussing it, and hope to have a vote of approval today with any edits that you'd like staff to incorporate prior to releasing it to the public. Quick discussion around staffing options, and before we set the next meeting, because this group does not yet have a regular meeting schedule. Maybe you want to talk about the frequency and get some dates on the calendar. So that's an overview, and I'll follow your lead and happy to jump in and help how you like.
Yeah, I think some facilitation help would be appreciated. So should we dive into committee membership?
Yes. So one of the points of feedback at the engagement session was related to the membership structure. There are those 6 different domains that were identified. And the question from the committee is, do you want to stick with that, adding 6 as a number, those particular definitions, test the plan that you have put in place and see how it works? Or at this time, do you want to revisit it and make any changes to that structure?
Well, I've been doing some thinking about this, and I think for all of us, we're sort of in the design phase of trying to figure out what year 1 of this will look like, which is probably different than what year 2, 3, 4, and 10 will look like. And part of it, I think, is also sort of testing the waters on what the level of interest is, and figuring out how do we create a committee structure that can do, I think, a couple different things. One is bring an interesting array of advocates from different sectors to the table, and then essentially be creating more champions around this issue, but also speaking to sort of, we know so many sectors are involved with this. And another piece is because this committee sort of has this, it will not be making final funding decisions, but will be playing an advisory role in sort of bringing recommendations to the full Board of Commissioners. As everyone is well aware, this is a chapter of Buncombe County's history where issues of transparency, particularly related to how any public funding happens, are so critical and key. So it's also felt important to build from sort of day one a really healthy kind of DNA around how we keep that arm's length distance. While at the same time sort of building structures around the committee, I think, that ensure that the voices of experts and those channels are open all the time. So that's kind of just from a design perspective, a few of the things I've been thinking about. But I think based on how many folks have applied 11 days prior to the actual deadline, I'm really excited about the response. And so I've been wondering, and Robert and I would love to hear your perspectives, if we might want to keep open the possibility of kind of adding a couple of at-large memberships, which would be folks who might, there might be a better term for this, but it's like folks who, some of the other committees I sit on have this, where the basic categories are fulfilled, and then you sort of have these at-large members who may bring sort of different levels of experience and expertise in the mix. I know when we were relaunching the library board, we initially, I think, thought we'd have 9 members. The candidate pool was so rich and deep, we doubled the size of that board because it seemed silly to stick to an arbitrary number when the community response was so passionate. So anyway, kind of monologuing here, but those are my initial thoughts about seeing where we are when we get to the deadline and being open to creating some additional slots if it seems like makes a lot of sense.
I want to echo, because like I say, this is ground floor, and I think we ought to stick with the 6 right now with the option later on to see what, of what area we have not really covered really well. I mean, if that's fine with Jasmine, Al, and everyone involved here. I mean, Al, word.
Well, with me, let's face it, I'm impatient. And I come from the corporate world where it's broke, we fix it, move on. Sometimes it's good, but I found out in 2 years in government, it doesn't work that way. It's a lot different. What I'm afraid of, I hope in limiting to 6, we didn't cut it too short, where we can get more people involved. Now, mind you, I don't want us to get way too involved, because I think for this committee, I don't want us to grind things out and string them along when we can get something done. But we might want to look at maybe, going from 6 to 10. I wouldn't even be, I'd be fine with 12, doubling. But I don't think we need to go past that, because it's too bulky, we won't get anything done. But I really think, Robert, I've been thinking about it, I think 6, we might have cut it too short to get the representation that we need. And I think we need to look at representation in getting the key players around the table. We need to make sure that all 3 districts are equally represented. Because we're running in, I've known that seen this going around the county. We all don't have the same problems in pre-K. If you're out in Leicester, Sandy Mush is one thing. If you're here in our district, in the city of Asheville, it's another. Or in Broad River, some of the other areas. But I think that's one of the keys too. When we look at representation and getting the right people on the bus, we need to make sure geographically that we're covered. That's a concern I have too.
I mean, I can see the future of being, and this is, hey, we're just taking the plane off, we ain't left yet. Is I like the 6, 7, but getting the key people and then seeing what the interest is after that. I mean, we got to hear from everyone, because we don't want to lopside this thing one way or the other. We want to make sure that we are doing it right and not just getting a load in here and saying, okay, we've got it. It's easy to add on. It's very hard to take off.
I agree. It's right.
Do you want to leave
But
it
in
open?
government for 2 years, sometimes we have not done things right.
No.
Do we want to leave it
Which is what we
open for
inherited.
today and decide a number when we're making selections for filling the first 6? And at that time, if there's 2 or 4 or
We
6,
can do
in
it.
addition
I'll
to
be
the
fine.
other 6?
Would you be?
Yeah, I
I'm
think that
fine
sounds like
with
a
that.
great approach.
Yeah.
Okay. We're using even numbers for the community member additions because there are 3 of you and it keeps us at an odd number as
Got
a
it.
total committee, so we can't get tied.
Right.
The list of applicants so far is included in your packet. There are 8 names on the list. Some of those individuals are in the room. And so this isn't a discussion about who would be great on the committee. We'll make their full application available to you, and then if there's other information that we can gather in follow-up, set up interviews or anything like that, we can discuss that later. The purpose for looking at this right now is looking at the areas of the county, looking at the positions that people express they would be, the seats that they would be applying for. Is there any specific outreach or engagement that you all would like to take on, or that you'd like staff to take on between now and March 15th to promote the availability? We have done a press release. It's out online in social media. We've sent it via email to various distribution lists, and I know a number of you and me and other members in the room have reached out specifically to recruit individuals who we want to make sure have seen the opportunity.
Why don't you do this for us? After the 10th, email us a copy of who applied, and then we can look at it and go from there. Because from what I see here, I see good people, already. So what you see. I don't think though we'll have to encourage anybody to apply. I might be wrong.
That plus, I would just, the communications team has been doing a great job of kind of broadcasting this. It's up on social media, it's out in the media, and I think just keeping that prominent, make sure folks are aware of the deadline.
Yep.
I think having 8 folks, 10 days before application closes is a good sign.
Yeah,
So
great
I think the word's moving, and invite everyone here, please, to keep circulating this. I think we want to think, especially, geographic diversity, racial, ethnic diversity, age diversity, kind of really putting together a panel of folks that speak to Buncombe County.
In fielding questions, There have been questions about meeting frequency, time commitment, meeting schedule. Those are things that are undefined. And so if there's any guidance that you would like me to carry forward in responding to those kinds of questions, let me know. I've essentially said that once we get our committee together, we'll look at what the best meeting time is for everyone. Commissioners you all have tended to select meetings on the day of your board meetings. And maybe that can be part of the follow-up and interview process once we've narrowed it down, trying to find a group that can regularly meet. I would assume we're probably going to have a monthly meeting at some point, but the work this spring may be heavier than it may be every couple of weeks during the review period, depending on how much homework there is versus in-person work.
And depending on the time, we're getting pretty heavy now, the first and third Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'd like to move away when we meet, because that's limiting us. We have so many irons in the fire a day. We won't be able to give it the time. On the other hand, everybody's not like me. My schedule is pretty darn flexible, other than the commission. I don't work anymore. So, well, I take that back. I do work. I just don't get paid the way I used to. But that's something we need to really look at, because to get good people involved, they're busy. So we need to be careful with the schedule.
So to be determined.
Yeah.
Community engagement? Thoughts on that? Either follow up about the sessions that you held on the 19th, or thoughts about further community engagement that you would like to take on as a committee?
Just like to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who participated, and it felt like exactly the right first step, that the first thing this committee did was have community engagement with local experts and stakeholders, and I'm eager to make sure we keep those channels very active, especially as the fuller committee gets formed. So thank you all for being part of that. I would love to do an open public community event and supplement that with sort of, whether it's through Let's Talk or some other channel, ways for people who can't attend that to share input and feedback. Partly so that folks have specific opportunities to weigh in during this first year, but also because part of what we're trying to do is create a bigger drumbeat in the community around, sort of how we support the youngest children in our community. And I think the more we can be putting that message out that this is a key priority for the county commission, the better. So I'd love to see that happen maybe before the application closes.
I agree. Yeah.
Staff, Rashida is in the back of the room, have been doing some thinking about format and structure for that.
Great.
And can use some of our facilitation and public participation techniques that we've used for other engagement sessions. Sometime in evening, I would assume.
Whenever.
Here?
This looks great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a good space.
I assume ground
Probably,
Yeah,
bigger,
downstairs.
yeah.
floor. Do you want me to contact you separately later to look at dates?
I'm pretty flexible. I mean,
Not quite as flexible.
Yeah.
So I can,
Yeah.
maybe based on what
Robert,
staff thinks as a timeline, like maybe we can zero in on like how much lead time staff would want to plan it and promote it, and then, but it's a high priority, so.
And I believe the sooner we get everything going, base here, we're gonna be better off to be ready. I mean, we're fixing to have budget coming up, and that's gonna be a lot of work for us getting ready, but an hour, hour and a half is not gonna be out of question for us to be able to attend.
We will follow up with you. Let's Let's look for the funding application. Would you like me to walk you through it and then you can have questions? Sounds good.
Fine, yeah.
So the first page of the funding application is a set of overview information. Some of this language is language we've seen before on the website, in the overview materials, in the commissioner resolution. Some of it is language that came out of our last session. But essentially, opening up the invitation, and the first thing that's noted there is an application due date. I just want to star that as something that we can come back, and I want to specifically affirm what's the right sweet spot of enough time and still keeping the process moving. And so we'll get back to that when we start gathering feedback and questions and input. This summary is similar to what we had on the project summary, where any organization is eligible to apply. Capital is specific to the public school systems. Any organization type may request funding for program operations. We are open to multi-year. That's not specified at this time. What multi-year means, is it 2 years, is it more than 2 years? It's open-ended, and as we get further in that application, I hope you'll find that it's flexible enough to accommodate various types of proposals. Collaborative projects involving multiple organizations are considered. That's not something that we're asking organizations to structure their applications as. The focus, this is the newer language coming out of what I was hearing in your session last time. Focus is on scaling up effective practices for an enhanced local system of early care and education that's effective, accessible, affordable, responsive, and sustainable. That's kind of an overall guidance for the rest of the information to come. A restatement of the goals related to this priority, those are straight out of the resolution, with the adjustment that we mentioned last time, where it is specific that this can be any early care and education with an emphasis on pre-K. So any first 2,000 days, 0 to 5 focused program or service would be eligible. The purposes remain unchanged. Flipping to the next page, numbers 1 through 4. And then finally, below that, there are some examples. These are things that I pulled out of discussions, the questions that commissioners were suggesting as we got ready for the last meeting, just to provide applying organizations some ideas of what commissioners have in mind in opening up this application. So programs and activities that can help contribute to a significant scale-up. We'll hear that throughout. Based on both effective and promising practices here and from other communities. The application itself, this is online, so people would go to that website, buncombecounty.org/apply, where we take our strategic partnership grants, tipping point grant applications, many of our requests for proposals, like Health and Human Services, go through that portal. So likely a lot of the organizations that will be working with us through the application software are already set up and ready to go. We have found it very easy for many different kinds of small to large scale agencies to navigate easily. It's a set of open-ended text area questions with character limits. That's another point of discussion. How much material do we want to be opening up? We want to give organizations plenty of space to effectively communicate about their project, but we also need to keep it manageable so that the committee can move easily through the materials as it comes in. So the first 2 questions have the longest amount of space to type in, about a page of text, to provide a description and how the project will work. The other project questions in that section and everything else that has a standardized amount of space available to it, we're asking organizations to describe the need that the project is intended to address, the approach that the project is using, talk about the organization that is making the application, its collaborative partners in the project, formal and informal, and share with us the organization's approach to equity. both internally and externally. After that, the next section is about results. We would intend to take, whether it's results-based accountability specifically or another model with support from our performance management department at the community, an approach to where there are some indicators that we measure system-wide. So what we talked about last time is number of children in care in the community. We know how many children there are 0 to 5. We can look at how many are in licensed care. Do we see that move? We talked about school readiness. I forget the name of the exact assessment, but as children enter kindergarten, how community-wide, how ready are kids entering kindergarten, ready to learn? There will be measures that all contribute to, and then there will be measures that each project specifically identifies and tracks against. And so results asks the applying organization to share alignment with the purpose, scope, how narrow or broad, outputs, that's the how much, how many, what did the service look like, how much of the service will be, and what will we count. And then outcomes, that's the difference that the service makes. And again, some specific areas that organizations can call out. This is making an outcome related to how effectively the system works, an outcome related to workforce, an outcome related to slots, quality, affordability, access, equity, and or growth and development of children. So broadly including many of those purpose and goal areas. Evaluation, wanting to hear from the organization what their approach is to evaluation. Ask them to speak to the scale up to address the purpose, the crisis that the commissioners were responding to in establishing the funding committee, the overall shortage. And then finally, resource support, knowing that our partnerships with funded organizations are more than only funding. If there are resources and support that the county can lend or leverage in support of the project or organization, we want to give them a place to share with those kind of ideas. And then finally, budget. How much is being requested for FY20? While we are open to multi-year requests, we are infusing the fund annually. So we will have $3.6 million total to work with, provided that gets approved in the county's annual budget. We talked before about how there are a few financial commitments that we already have that we'll be renewing with currently funded projects. And then the rest is available for granting in year one. My assumption is that multi-year commitments would come out of the next year's infusion rather than earmarking it out of the year one. But we're asking them to specify, the organizations who are applying, how much in year one, and then upload a budget in the format of their choice. Most organizations tend to have a pretty standardized budget structure, as long as it has clear information about the income sources, that any capital assets are noted, any subcontracts or funding that's going to be passed through, it would be noted. And then if it is a multi-year request, some way with tabs or pages or columns to indicate what that would look like on a multi-year basis. A budget narrative section, which is typical. The organization would upload the data and then upload some narrative summary describing things such as how pending or confirmed other revenue are, any restrictions that other revenue might have, a chance to discuss if it's a multi-year request, and how critical it is. So then that leads into a partial funding. So if an organization is on the fence about exactly what the right amount of ask is, but they could see it going one of two ways, this is a chance for them to let us know as staff and then as the committee what factors would need to be taken into consideration. Is this really an all or nothing project? It wouldn't work unless it's at this level, or are there different levels of funding? Because we don't know how many requests will come in and what that dollar amount will add up to be, but every grant process that we've had experience with here at the county is always more requests, more need than we're able to fund. And so partial funding is something that review teams have considered in the past. And then finally, summarizing some next steps, grant process, reminding about the role of the Early Childhood Committee and the role of the overall Board of Commissioners. The idea being grant announcements anticipated for June with funding period beginning July. And then a note that funding, once it's granted, gets administered through a contract. So it's a performance-based contract between Buncombe County and the receiving organization. This is another question that I have fielded from partners, is what would disbursement be? And it's flexible. So an organization might want half upfront and halfway through, tying funding to milestones. Maybe it's a monthly reimbursement. We have the ability to be flexible in designing what those look like. And of course, there are always fiscal and programmatic compliance things that come later. I didn't want us to get too heavy on asking people to put their IRS 990 forms or their audited financial statements at the review end, but that doesn't mean that it won't be a part of the contracting process, which is standard for accounting. So that's top to bottom. Questions, specific or broad, feedback, edits that you would like to be considered?
The big question I have, back to the beginning, in reading this last night, are we cutting it too close when we set the deadline for April 12th?
I wonder that.
I would think we would be better off moving it to May 12th. And that still gives us, wouldn't that give, now I don't want to push the staff too much, but that would give us enough time to be able to make the announcement in June, wouldn't it?
I think anything can work, and it's going to be a push to applying organizations and a push to the county and a push to the committee no matter what.
Yeah,
This
especially
is
the
gonna
first
be
year.
A period of intensity.
Right.
And we don't want to, we want to find that balance. And I too wondered whether that was
Yeah,
enough time.
yeah, that's my concern.
My thought was write a date down and then we can discuss it and adjust it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, process-wise, once the applications come in, the committee will need a review period, and then we'll bring forth a set of recommendations that go to the full board of commission. I'm sorry? Correct, during the budgeting process, but it'll sort of be a package. Like the commission's passed a resolution saying we're committing to funding $3.6 million towards early child education development. So I imagine we'll bring forth a package of recommendations that get to that threshold.
What has happened with the other grant programs is we already know the number. So in budget message that comes from the manager to the board, it would include the $3.6 million on that line.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have anytime up through the budget adoption date, which is June 18th, I think. Is that the third Tuesday in June?
It's the second meeting.
To provide the by name list with amounts. The sooner that we're able to make those approvals, the easier it is for the receiving organizations to respond, right? But we may need right up until budget adoption date.
And we'll want the
together.
full board of commissioners to have opportunity to review, kind of get their hands in this too. They'll get a set of recommendations, but they'll probably have questions and discussion and dialogue around that. So I mean, I wonder if maybe somewhere between April 12th and May 12th, like end of April or early May, might split the difference a little bit.
So if it opens tomorrow, April 12th would be just over 5 weeks. End of April pushes it to about 7.5 weeks. And that would give the committee basically 6 weeks.
No problem with the end of April.
April 30?
Yeah.
We need to cover.
Yeah, I mean, April 12th is fine with me, with an extension to by May 12th to finalize. What? I mean, I think everyone here is gonna go to work tomorrow, right? And they probably been working a year ago. Correct?
Probably.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope this just don't start tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of
Yeah.
having a phase, there may be questions that we want to gather and go to the organizations in between and get follow-up information.
Yeah. Have you structured deadline processes with a phased approach previously?
Typically a hard deadline.
Okay.
And then build in with the committee a chance for a first review, a second review.
What if we did April 19th? Split the difference a little bit,
Yeah.
and then build in a little bit more of a buffer for the committee to do some back and forth with applicants if needed?
Does that seem workable to you now?
Yeah, that's fine. I think some of mine know, and I need to back off. I'm looking at it through Al's lens. This time of year, it's me and my accountants, and that's it. And that's April 15th. And they want me in this year by the 26th of March. They said, we're tired of you coming in on the 10th.
And being aware that organizations know this is coming and have been able to have their internal conversations about what kinds of projects might we propose. The members in this room haven't seen the list of questions until today, but hopefully there's nothing in here that is something that would be out of the ordinary. These would be standard questions that an organization would take up for consideration when designing a project.
I just have a thought from someone who's been on both sides of the grant requesting and the grant distributing side. And I think really what was mentioned just a moment ago is really important about how much time do you all need to do your due diligence in reviewing proposals. It's our job as the applicants to be sure that we're providing you with the helpful information that you need. And if you needed site visits or additional information or documentation to be able to feel like you're making the best possible decisions to benefit our children in the community, that's where we should be sure we can allow the time. And it's our job as the applicants to do our part to try to make your job as easy by submitting a solid application in the first place. And given this information, I mean, a 5 or 6 week window to get a grant in is pretty ample time, and anyone that's going to submit an application you would probably want to see is probably able to put something solid together in that time. Because it may be adjusted slightly based on today's conversation, but this is a pretty standard, this is the kind of questions you would expect to see on a grant proposal. So I think many of us would be prepared to work with you, knowing that it's a tight time window, but glad to have the opportunity to apply.
Thanks for sharing that.
So I was thinking too, though, don't forget, we have some organizations out there who might be applying for the first time, just started. And we want to be sure that not only the organizations who exist, but new ones who want to, we can start. Because we need everybody at the plate, because we don't have enough now.
And remember that we can keep our options open.
Okay.
This is something I've heard from you, and what we also heard in feedback from our partners. We might grant a certain amount of the pot in the initial run and see some applications that we want to stay in dialogue with and have them follow up and prepare and from the time. The committee might say, we'd like to open up another mini grant in a year for a certain type of proposal. Proceeding with this process does not preclude other options as well. So that's timing.
Did we decide on the date?
I crossed out of my copy the 12th and put in the 19th. Do you want to stick with that?
Is that?
That's what I got.
Okay. Were there any other thoughts or questions or funny tummy feelings areas where you got nervous as I talked through what is included here?
I think staff's done a great job
Yeah,
with
you
this.
did a good job.
Yeah, and it feels like it captures the sort of the vision and the aim of what we're trying to help build and support here. So.
would feel most comfortable if you would take a vote to approve this funding application, and we can put in the minutes that.
I move to approve
It's with
the application as written, as presented.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, 3-0.
We can get back and get this open up within the next day.
Great.
Good.
And do an announcement to people that have
Good job.
attended these engagement sessions and are on our contact lists as supporters. And we definitely would look to those of you who have distribution lists to amplify the application and share it with your partners as well when it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I think we're figuring out what we're doing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
I have a, both a question and a thought to share back to the initial part of the conversation around community membership. Wondering if there is any openness to adding the category of early intervention and or foster care and child protective services. Just thinking about some of our most at-risk children would benefit / need high quality early care education and use. So that's one thing. And I think the idea of a couple of at-large members is great. I agree, not getting huge. Getting to 12 seems still like a reasonable size, but allows you the opportunity for slightly enhanced perspectives. So that was one thing, and then wondering if it would be helpful to you all and future committee members to have kind of a updated state of childcare, updated data, some of which the partnership provides regularly, but there are some data points that we've seen from another county who's going through this process that might be really helpful just in terms of future planning for the committee. If that's helpful, shoot you that list, and you might have other things, Rachel, you might have.
Thank you for sharing that. And in terms of what you're saying, I don't know if I should speak.
Yeah.
We're figuring this out with our 3-member committee.
Right.
And what we're going to do at the end is make sure that there's an open time for anyone to say anything, for sure. And I've made a note of your suggestion on membership. And the other thing that we want to make a plan for, which wasn't here, but it's kind of queued up, is once we've got our committee selected, what does the onboarding coach up kind of level setting look like? We would certainly want to use the county's information that we received from Partnership for Children in that professional and system development contract, that state of child care report that we publish quarterly, and anything else that ABPPC or other advocates experts can bring in as part of that. Not sure what that formal structure is going to look like, but that's going to be an important step of the process. Wrapping up the other quick items on the agenda before we get to more open conversation. Does that work?
Right.
Staffing options. So we talked informally about what does it look like within county to staff this initiative. And we were sort of hesitating. I wasn't exactly sure on timing. We were going to have a conversation with a new manager when she came on board. And at some point over the past few weeks, I realized if we wait for a nod that yes, we should begin researching what a staffing structure could look like, we might be playing catch up. So I went ahead and submitted a position request in the county's annual budget process. Quick summary, what it looks like for me as a department within the budget process. We submitted our workbooks, which is the figure, the numbers, and all the justification for what goes into departmental budgets, contracts, professional services, all of that. We've also submitted any position requests through the budget office, and that for anyone within the organization that the department wants to ask to be reclassified or have a salary adjustment, and new position requests. And they all go into this one pool, and are being reviewed both by performance management as well as finance budget, the department, and the county manager. I've got a meeting for those within the department that I work on next week, and I wanted to go ahead and get a placeholder in there, so submitted a position request for a program coordinator style or level position. I don't have the details figured out. Sent it to HR who looks at activities, descriptions, and tries to match it with a grade and a position within our human resources system. So there's not a price tag on it or a specific title on it, but the idea that I pitched would be to have someone maybe similar in your mind to Tiffany's position as Justice Resource Coordinator, or Diana's position as Family Justice Coordinator. These are areas where we have a lot of different contracts and grants and partner relations, as well as staffing a committee and coordinating with the elected board and the manager's office on moving a strategic priority forward. I would anticipate that we are going to have opportunities to consider receiving funding. That has happened in major areas where we have had a lot of energy. So criminal justice is one area. We started ramping up our diversion efforts, and then before we knew it, we had the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation asking us as a jurisdiction to apply to be a recipient for this grant fund. With family justice, we pull in federal dollars. So I think workload, there's a lot of opportunities for both tight and workload supporting the committee, workload supporting that goal and priority setting, workload managing those investments in supporting the partners in the system coordination and implementation of the grants. My thinking would be to fund that position out of the $3.6 million out of the fund, and want to run that by you. Make you aware that I put it in there without checking, because of order of operations that went in, we can pull it back out. See if that feels right, no decisions, but there's a placeholder. And see if it feels right that it wouldn't be an additional budget request to commissioners to increase early childhood beyond what's been earmarked, but also knowing that any funds that are directly spent by the county, whether it's for a position or for a public education campaign or for anything else, are funds that then wouldn't be included in the direct allocation to.
You know, my concern here is, one, I want to protect the corpus. I want to make sure that that 3.6 million go to where we want it to go, for early childhood. Now, let's be creative here. Let's look at, you know, we've got our community engagement staff already in place. It's not carved in stone what they do. I mean, this would be something, could we look at rolling that in with them? You know, my concern is, I don't want to see us where it's early childhood, affordable housing, or whatever. The goal here is not, and not knocking, you know, what you said, but I will say I'm against that, because I don't want to see us increasing staff here. I want to see us better utilizing who we have. But I want this money to go where we intend for it to go. They have to preschool, because we need it there. And let's look and see where, you know, it might be, we can take care of this without adding to staff. And without taking away from the 3.6 million, to make sure we give it where it should go. That's just my.
On the staffing question, I hear what you're saying. On the staffing question, I think I land a little differently in the sense that just having seen what's happening with the Justice Resource Center and Family Justice Center is having a position that's attracting folks who have real expertise around that issue area, and then the amount of momentum that's happening with someone waking up every morning saying, show up at Buncombe County to work on X issue. So I would advocate for us creating a position that could, and hopefully there would be internal candidates for it, but it would be a new position to sort of say this is, someone who's going to help spearhead this work. And it's rapidly, in my opinion, it's rapidly becoming sort of a broad enough portfolio to keep someone very busy. And once the funding awards are made effective July 1, that's going to ramp up even more, I think. So, and I think I could argue sort of either side of, in year one, do we look to bring that money in from the 2.6 commitment because we know it's there and it's secured, or do we advocate for the commission to consider an additional investment? More than anything, what I want is for this to be successful, and I think for this to be successful, it requires just the capacity. It deserves the capacity of someone showing up and saying, I'm sort of thinking about this in the moment I clock in, the moment I clock out every
Do
day.
we know, though, who we need now?
Well,
I
I think-
want to make sure we get into this
Mhm.
and know exactly what who we need, what we want to do with it.
Yeah.
And with staffing, here it is too, let's back up. Once you start it, you bring somebody in.
Yeah.
I don't want us to see 6 months or 18 months, and we don't need you anymore.
Yeah, I hear those concerns. I mean, I think, I certainly want to hear that new county manager Pender's perspective on it. I'm just projecting that, by July 1, the county will have administered approximately $3.6 million in grant funding. And hopefully we'll be starting to support new kinds of projects that kind of speak to different levels of collaboration and longer-term scale and impact. And I think that, the committee will play a role in this, but I think having someone who is sort of, it can be on call for those community partners, can be thinking strategically and guiding a process towards what is this fund doing 3, 5, 10, 15 years from now, versus sort of what are we doing for our next monthly meeting. So to me, those are, as we sort of sketch out, what will this work look like by July 19?
I'm not even more clear, maybe I didn't do a good job of saying it. I'm not against some of the staff, no, but I am against taking it out of the 3.6 million.
And this plane's finally got a little turbulence, so.
It wouldn't be fun if we
I
didn't have
wouldn't
to
be,
turn around.
that's it, yeah.
And I understand what I was saying is everyone that was involved in the 3.6 million, the 7 commissioners was looking at 1.5, looking at 2.5, looking at this. This is me, and we allocated 3.6 million. I think we need to stick with that to make sure it all goes, not staffing or anything the first year. Because I don't want to end up like we did with the AV Tech or the Buncombe County School, someone using this money and before we know it, oh, well, there's really only 2.4 million for early child care.
We're not going to pay that much, Rob.
My area of hesitation is I have insight into how tight the budget is. There is a lot of pressure and there are a lot of position requests. And
Oh, yeah.
that's what kept me from even putting one on the table is I'm not sure departmentally that I was ready to justify that this position request is more important than other position requests. You'll hear this evening in the Board of Commissioners meeting about a large set of position requests. And county positions come at a cost, and that's where I was coming from the staff perspective. I hear what you're saying about the intent, being true to the intent of the fund, as well as making sure that we're being as effective with it as we can. And happy to follow your guidance on where to go next.
Well, did you get to say what you were doing?
I think so.
Okay.
The thing is, I want to make sure, and that's because if anyone, and I know everyone was watching that meeting that night, it was an hour and a half of going back and forth. And we voted $3.6 million to early child care. I think that's in black and white, and I want to keep it there. and staffing can come out of it, but I want everyone to know, okay, we're gonna use this and we need office equipment. I know how this works with being in business. You add one thing, you have got a lot of other things that are pulled out of that pot. Now, is it gonna be pulled out of another pot somewhere? That's my concern, is over the years here, we have seen money misappropriated that was supposed to go somewhere, and it wasn't.
I would argue that an investment in a person doing system coordination.
I'm not arguing about that, that is.
Is perfectly in alignment with these goals, and maybe that's something that we just receive some feedback on, both from our manager, who I've not had an official meeting with, had a few moments here and there to talk about burning topics. She and I sit down together for the first time on Friday, and I'll put this on her list to hear from her on, and you all can think more about it, and we'll hear feedback from people in the room, either during this meeting or later. And we'll be gathering the rest of the information about what budget options are available to us in the broader context, because it's one thing to make this decision only looking at this slice, but we've got so much that we're going to be considering budget-wise over the next few months.
And I think with new county manager starting today, that she should be involved in this, of saying, okay, I see some areas we could move some things around. I mean, if there's anything I don't want is no more of this AV Tech, Buncombe County Schools, EMS and everything to mess with the number that we've got. We've got to have a number and stick with it.
Bottom line is, we gotta learn how to say no.
Exactly.
You can't keep everybody.
Yeah.
Just quickly zooming out, I think I hear two things. One is, there's already a decent amount of work involved with launching this, and there will be more work once it's launched. And so the ways to staff that would be creating a new position, reassigning a current position, or contracting it out for consultant. And maybe there's other structures.
Potentially. One of those is no cost if we handle it within current workload.
Right. But then,
and we would, if directed to do that, evaluate all of our portfolio and see what could be reassigned.
Right.
And then the other two options, I didn't open up for discussion whether we contract for support versus have staff support. My recommendation was to build in some internal capacity while having contracts throughout the process might be really helpful for specific deliverables. I don't know that getting involved in the field in terms of public administration of the fund can be done by an external partner.
So we know there's a lot of work to do, and there's a question about how to staff that work. We'll get county manager input. But I think the other one, just very briefly, is for us as commissioners to be thinking about how we support the strategic priorities we've identified. Two of them currently have dedicated staff, the sustainability one and the criminal justice one.
Right.
And the rest do not, to my knowledge, have a dedicated staff person.
Sort of, I mean, housing has the planning departments,
right.
The housing services kind of.
Yeah, that is
right. Right, so there's staff working on those issues, but not someone who's sort of like tasked with saying this is a strategic priority of the commission, and we're going to create a strategic plan around how we do X. So I think that's a question that sort of, as we think about strategic planning more generally, we need to think about is like, once we set this priority, and in this case, we're sort of now coupling it with a significant funding investment annually, what's the appropriate way to staff and support that both? So that, I'm just flagging that as we kind of dive into budgetary conversations.
Yeah. That is important. We were having the same conversation about opioids. Work is happening at EMS, at law enforcement, at health and human services, with public health. And there's a lot of coordination just internally within our own departments before we layer on all of our external coordination. And there isn't, who do you call at the county when you want to have a conversation about opioids?
I get that question.
You might think of 6 to 8 different people.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
So we'll keep talking about this.
It's open for further discussion. Also
Just
on
one of them.
the list, time check, it's almost 11:05. Let's set a time to come back next. I will send you on, what did you say, around March 10th, the committee applications that have come in so far.
Yeah.
That application process, maybe the 11th, next Monday. The application closes Friday the 15th. So if you would like to get together the week of the 18th or the week of the 25th to review those applications, that would be appropriate.
It's good.
The week of the 18th looks great. We have our meeting that day on the 19th.
Yeah.
Do you want to, but you said you want to move away from these Tuesdays?
That-
No, not for that.
Oh,
The
okay.
affordable housing,
Yeah, we'll be here for that. Yeah, I was thinking about when we get into the meetings, you really could even.
Monday, the 18th, I am out of town.
Okay.
the Affordable Housing Committee will meet the 19th at 11 a.m. We could be before that.
We're not affected by that.
I am.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
You can meet without me.
Well, you can put half in. You make.
Will we do a
you good at
9:30
that.
meeting?
Yeah,
We could, yeah.
yeah, let's see, yeah.
And this will be reviewing the committee applications and
Committee, yeah.
potentially making decisions about committees' size and composition.
So,
We're gonna meet at 9:30 on March
9:30
19th.
to 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 19th.
that works.
19th at 9:30.
Mhm.
Room TBD.
That's all right. I'm
You'll
fine
find
with
out
it.
soon as
Before we open for questions and comments, Jasmine, I saw you had a pile of papers you were bringing in.
Oh, yeah, just super briefly, we can run copies for anyone in the room who's interested, but I wanted to share y'all. This is a white paper about a shared services model that's been implemented in Greenville County, South Carolina.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so just kind of, part of, it's just kind of continuing a dialogue at the level of committee of
Okay.
what are promising practices locally and in other communities, and had a chance to talk with the folks down in Greenville County about how this is going. They're a couple years into implementation right now. And the design of it is about supporting, it's using the shared services strategy, which helps sort of, which individual centers, especially smaller centers which work so close to the margins, can participate in, and they do shared purchasing, shared and centralized things like HR forms, documents. And what it's showing is some really promising results both in cost savings. It's really concrete things like everyone buys food together and it gets delivered to the center versus each center going to send someone to buy food. Or each center independently running sort of HR and admin. So what they're seeing in Greenville County, and they said they'd love to have us down for a site visit if we're interested, is both cost savings, but also more efficient practices and a lot of people power, a lot of savings of people, people's hours and time and efficiencies. So just kind of, as we think about, it's been used in New Hampshire, Colorado, South Carolina, this is, and I'm sure many folks in the room are very familiar, but thinking about strategies like this that are showing, starting to move the needle on some of the structural issues that we know are faced in Buncombe County. So I'll put out there that I'd love to hear from folks in the community. If y'all are, if versions of this are already happening, I would just love to hear information about this, or if these are the kinds of things folks are envisioning, piloting with saying, here's 5 centers that are ready to go in on this. There's actually a corporate vendor that does all the back end stuff. It's sort of a plug and play model, it sounds like. So just interesting, and again, we're speaking to the choir here somewhat, so versions of this may exist in Buncombe, but it seems like what they've done in South Carolina is actually, it's now a statewide model that centers across the state can participate in. So just kind of wanted to keep sharing information. Also in here is information about a program that On Track is running. It's a match savings program. I think some of the providers in the room are already participating in it. But just a really cool model that's helping folks, especially folks who are in professions where they're not earning as much as they should, develop emergency savings plans. And the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina has been an early funder in that. And talked to Celeste Collins, ED of On Track, and she said the results have far exceeded their expectations in terms of success rates and retention rates. So just want to keep circulating, moving from here's the problem statement to here's sort of broad analyses into really specific strategies that we're seeing showing results locally and in other communities. And anyone in the room and beyond the room who wants to talk and dive into the details, consider me interested. I'd love to hear more about what you're seeing or what you're contemplating. Robert and Al just wanted to make sure I'm sharing with y'all everything I'm kind of reading that looks interesting.
Any further committee discussion? So these meetings will have an open forum for public comment. So based on the number of people in the room, I don't know that we can have a dialogue, but certainly if you'd like to have a back and forth as we go around, committee members can do that. Otherwise, we'll just kind of go around and let people provide comments or ask questions, and I'll make a note of them. Please remind me of your name.
Do we have is there a time limit? that we
3
need to
minutes
enforce?
is the most
Okay.
a public comment should last.
But you all got 11:30.
We got 11:30.
We will need to stop at 11:28.
Okay.
How far do you need to travel?
Down the hall.
At least
We
get
can
the
roll
rest
down the
straight
hall
on the way.
there. Yeah, get some more coffee. It's like I saw Amy, Greg, and then Jerry's hands go up. So.
Yeah, quick question about the funding. So given that there are projects currently funded in this realm, is that something that will be shared in advance? So as we're thinking about collaborations or particular areas of funding, everyone will know what's already underway?
Yes, the projects currently funded include Partnership for Children's $150-ish thousand for professional system development. To your right, Brian, with Community Action, there's a project funding a classroom at Johnston Elementary School. I won't be able to tell you the dollar amounts off the top of my head, we can send it out. YWCA has some funding for the expansion that they underwritten last year for their early learning program. Valley Child out in Swanella has some funding to support the operation. And the Peace Project, which is Warren Wilson is the fiscal agent for the project, and it's a multi-organization. Warren Wilson College, Werner Center for Early Learning, AD Tech, and Owen High School are the different partners of the workforce project. All of them add up to 800,000 is a guess. It's a list that I'm happy to send to you.
I just thought it might be useful to have it posted just publicly.
Maybe I can make it a part of the minutes from this meeting. There's a website, buncombecounty.org/grants, and you can go to that site and pull up meeting materials, agendas, minutes. And so right now, that's the place that we have for posting, and I'm happy to also email them.
Just so other applicants are aware of that.
So are all those multi-year?
Suggestion.
Is that what you're saying?
Those are annual contracts, and what the commissioners and I had discussed around the sort of December, January timeframe, when we're reaching out to partners about renewing contracts for the following year. We did not have a plan for what the process was going to look like at that point. The idea is for all of those projects to get folded into the competitive process, but we wanted to give the first year, because we didn't know the time frame of the application, we had to submit departmental requests, so those will be funded out of the fund, but they will not need to submit a competitive application for FY20. But what we've communicated with those partners is that FY21 and beyond, it would come in as an application like all other projects, and provided as a recommendation to the board that it be in part of the strategic investment in early childhood.
So those that you listed off, let me see if I understand, they will be renewed this year, but then they would go into the competitive process the following year. And so that would be at their same level, or it all comes out of this 3.6 million, right? This 800,000 would be.
what I communicated to the partners is that we would renew at the flat level for FY '20 because there wasn't a process for considering adjustments to that.
Right.
Or flat or previously agreed on because Peace Project is a multi-year with a little bit of a different amount each year. I forgot to say the Christine Avery classroom. That's in there. Sorry about that. So that's what happens when I try to speak up. That we would renew either flat or previously agreed upon levels. And then as far as what a project would request beyond that, wide open.
Greg?
Sure. Thank you. Greg Moore. So last week I had the opportunity to be in Raleigh for the launch of the Early Childhood Action Plan that's coming out of the Department of Health and Human Services. Exciting vision for North Carolina and kind of promoted a little bit as kind of like the next generation of North Carolina's leadership in early childhood. And I had a chance to hear Governor Hunt address the crowd. He was really reminding us all kind of how the Smart Start system got built and laid out during his tenure. And so I'm not maybe the most knowledgeable about all that background. Some people just run circles around me on how that got launched. But he reminded us of the room of having to go to each kind of county and still this idea that the counties needed kind of a point organization in the county to kind of wake up thinking about early childhood. And so I just wanted to say that the question that's come in my head during this conversation about like how we, how staffing is it in the county, is it contract, how that works. It's clear to me that the management of the funds needs to be clearly rest with the county. But the question I just asked this committee is kind of the consideration of the resource that the partnerships and Smart Start are meant to be statewide and how that integrates with this, because that is an organization that's sole purpose is to kind of wake up every morning and think about what's going on. And so, how do we leverage that versus parallel it in terms of making our resources go further is just a question I kind of put out there for the committee to, bat around in future meetings.
Thank you.
I agree, Greg. I think that's an excellent point. We have a whole system and a structure that our county was extremely involved in back in the day. And how do we maintain that resource and not set up parallel processes or fold? And this is something that I said actually that night at the October meeting, is how do we integrate what the county is investing is needed overall in early childhood education, all ages, 0 to 5 or 8 if you consider that. How do we integrate all this planning and all these different priorities that are out there? How does the planning that the partnership is doing integrate with this? And how do we use these resources to leverage every other resource that's out in the county, so that this fund doesn't become separated and set aside from all the other planning that should be being done by the partnership and others that are involved in early childhood and leadership. I'm not sure how this overall vision gets put together so that we're all moving in the same direction. I'm not saying that very well, but I do believe that we could this could be, as wonderful as it is, could also become fractured in terms of looking at the whole system.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, Jerry Rice. Preschool is really dear to my heart, and any education in it. But I am trying to put the emphasis where it should be, and that's on the educational system as a whole, not just pre-K. It's good to have a good start on something, but if you ain't got the pathway ahead, you're going to run into obstacles that's way bigger than what you're dealing with right now. And that's what I see coming. Jim Hunt tried it. He's still trying it, and it ain't got done yet, and he had more millions of dollars to put in it than you do today in Buncombe. You're looking at some things here that is not achievable with what you're looking at. I said it from the beginning. If you don't have a plan, you ain't got nothing. I don't even see a plan here today. I don't even see a start of a plan. When you're talking about money first, without talking about a plan of what you got, the needs are, then you got the cart before the horse. I haven't seen the needs. When you start talking about the numbers you've already got in the system, that's one thing. But what about the ones you don't have in the system that's going to have a place to put their business, and they're going to have personnel. They're going to have a lot of things that you ain't even talking about. I'd like to see that public comment be public comment and that be it. Because if you're going to engage the people around the table that's supposed to be committee members, let them start talking early. Let them be that part. Save the comment to people that don't have a voice around the table, because that's where we need the input from people that don't normally get to say anything. Now, I want to speak to something right here. House Bill 145. They are wanting to do a 15-point to lower the standard, I call it. Instead of an A of being 90 something, they want it down to 85. Now, does that sound good? You know, if you remember the dropout rate, they never could get the dropout rate. And Buncombe County had it on their list for 6 years straight as their #1 goal, and they never moved the needle. And I said, the only way you're going to move it is you get a policy change in Raleigh. And that's exactly what happened. Then the dropout rate dropped to 250 the next year. So they lost 250 people that quick. Now, where'd they go? They're still in the system. You still ain't done nothing. So this House bill that we're talking about here shows just how poor our educational system is when it comes to the quality that we've got in it right now. So if you're having to lower the standard to make your schools look good with numbers, you better take a good look at pre-K for sure, because the bottleneck's fixing to hit. Now, you know, I don't hear too much comment after I say things, because, you know, truth is the truth. It's going to stand. If you think I'm against education, I wouldn't be here for 32 years doing what I've done for free. If you think I'm not for education. But I'm not for lying either. And I think our system has got a lot of liars in it, and we need to fix the system. We're talking about the education system. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to participate in public comment?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hosting an open forum to hear from us, to work towards goals that much of our community see as important for the children, for the future of our community. Native of this area, so this is home, and it's nice to see this kind of focus and openness around this topic. Thank you.
Great, well, it's 23 past 11. Looks like we're ready to wrap up, and we'll be able to quite a few readings and get to 11:30 on time. Thank you everyone for attending. Please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet before you leave the room. And if it didn't make its way to you, we'll write your name and email on the back of my agenda so you can get a copy.
Where's the sign-up sheet?
I think it's back to that page.